Okay. Pivot tables are something that is going to be very useful to you in your career. They can be a little bit confusing because students don't use them very often, and you typically don't work with large sets of data either. But it's important to kind of understand what kind of information you're working with, and then the pivot table kind of makes a little bit more sense. In the example that's provided for you by the book, you're a social media person and you do regular posts about, you can see here, casual attire, nightwear, business attire, sportswear, on several different social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And as we make our post, we record how well they do, how they engage the people that we want to engage, because that's what social media marketing is all about, reach and engagement. So the person that's in charge wants to compare the different platforms as well as the different topics to try and see whether the engagement for those things is good or bad or somewhere in between. Now, you can get really, really granular with this. You can even look at whether morning posts do better than afternoon posts on different social media platforms. So, to keep it kind of simple, we're just going to keep it with this. And you can see how they have used the information that's over here in our data set and used a pivot table to summarize it and organize it so that we can better compare how the different platforms do with the different subjects that we're going to filter on. So basic overview of pivot tables. Let's go and get started on your assignment. So we're going to start here with just step number 14 and all of its sub-steps, and 15, and then I'll put the rest of it in a different video, okay? So if you've already completed all this and this is not what you need help with, stop this video and then go to the other one on the later steps. So we've got some explanation here on what we're doing. Our first instruction is switch to the academic pivot table worksheet, which I have done. Here I'm at the academic pivot table worksheet and I have selected A1. It wants me to add, let me see. So we are going to create a pivot table in cell A1 based on the academic groups table. And then we're going to update the pivot table in the following ways. So I'm going to make sure that's selected. I'm inserting. And we're going to do a pivot table. So it says to base it on the academic groups table. The academic groups table is located in this sheet tab right here. So I'm going to make sure that my dialog box is up here and that the cursor is blinking in this first box. I'm going to click here and then select that. And you can see that it is cutting it off a little bit, but you can tell that it did populate that. And then I'm going to click OK. And so now I have this empty box here, and this is where my pivot table is going to be. Now yours probably says pivot table 1. I've already run through this before I started the demo, so mine right here says pivot table 2. Again, yours probably says 1. So my first instruction point here is that it says to change the pivot table name to academic pivot table. Notice there are no spaces here at all, and caps matter. So I'm going to click over here. Let me go ahead and expand this a little so it looks a little more like what you've got. All right. Pivot table, the pivot table name. This is where we're going to type in academic pivot table. Let's try copy and paste that here. Pivot table name. And pressing the enter key on the keyboard. And now my pivot table is actually named academic pivot table. All right, so the next steps, I'm going to highlight that I finished it. Add the activities field and the group name field in that order to the rows area. Okay, so over here, we've got this brand new box over here. All of the different fields are listed here, and then we have these areas. Okay, and so the instructions said to add the activities field and the group name field to the rows area. So I have, there's my activities field and the group name field, and here's my rows area. So I'm going to click activities, and it said to do it in order. And as I do this, watch how this area over here updates, okay? Activities, I'm going to grab it and drag it. And then the group name, grab it and drag it, and make sure that it goes below activities. Notice that green line, I can drop it above or below. Make sure that you're dropping it below. And so now I have both of these things in the rows area, and you can see how it is just adding those things to my pivot table. All right, so that is finished off. Let me highlight that and move to the next one. Now I'm going to add these fields to the value area, 2024, 2025, and 2026 in that order to the values area. Same thing, 2024, drag to the values. 2025, again, watch how my table is updating, and 2026. All right. So make sure that you've got these things in order. Remember, the Cengage system will mark it wrong if they're in the wrong order. All right, so that is finished. Highlight it so I know I'm done. Change the display of subtotals to show all subtotals at the top of the group. This is just a display setting, so I'm coming back over here. Notice that I have two tabs up here. This is a design feature, so I'm going to go to design, and it said to change the subtotals to show subtotals at the top. All right, so now it's showing subtotals at the top. Check and boom. Change the report layout to show in outline form. All right, still design, report layout, show in outline form. Boom. And done. All right, so now I'm going to update the sum of 2024 field in the values area to display the name 2024 membership. We just want our table to look a little bit more professional instead of saying sum here. So we're going to update those fields so they have the correct label. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to the values. I'm going to click that and tell it value field settings. And I can update this to say what the assignment is telling me. 2024 membership. And then update, okay. All right, and we're going to do that for each of these fields. Okay, you can see that I went ahead and updated the other fields so they comply and highlighted my instruction. The last thing we're going to cover here is we want to demonstrate how this table will refresh when you change the original data. So I'm going to go back to that all groups worksheet for the Astronomy Society and change it to use 76 as the 2026 field value. So over here, academic groups. Here's the Astronomy Society and the 2026 number. I'm going to change that to be 76. And again, I went through this once before. So when we go back to our pivot table, in order to have this update, you're going to have to click that Pivot Table Analyze tab and then tell it to refresh. And it should update all of the changes that you made to the data source into your pivot table. So check out the next video to see how we run through the rest of the pivot table tasks.